You're listening to a special review episode of Jupiter's Legacy. Is this considered a we watched? Are we going with that?
Yeah, this is we watch.
All right.
Yeah.
We watched Jupiter's Legacy.
What's up?
We were actually lucky enough to get an early review, early review access. I guess we watched the first episode.
I believe the industry calls them screeners, Sean.
Screener, yes, screener. There you go. That's that snazzy industry talk. Marco, who are we thanking for that?
We are thinking, I'm literally pulling it up.
While he does that, we appreciate you guys joining us for this episode. Jupiter's Legacy, of course, the comic book by Mark Miller, and Frank Quitely. It is a one book in a series of stories, and the show has taken on the name of the first story, I guess. And yeah, the first season is out in full on Netflix. If you haven't checked it out for whatever reason, we are going to be talking just about the first episode that we were able to watch through the screener. Before we talk about it, go ahead, Marco.
Thanks to Allied Marketing for providing us the link.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we talk about that, I do want to let you guys know where you can find us. We are the Comics Pals everywhere and everywhere. If you've never heard us before, we do a weekly podcast where we talk about comics and the characters and every single place you can find them. That drops every single Monday. We also talk about industry news. We do reviews for comics every single week. We do watches just like this one. We did one for Falcon Winter Soldier. We did one for Invincible. We did one for Watchmen. All that great stuff is out there. Great content. Go check it out. Leave us a review and a rating wherever you're watching. If that's YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share with your friends. Free to do, helps us out a lot more than it costs you. Let's talk Jupiter's Legacy. I did not know what to expect. I remember reading like the first 3 issues of the comic and I dropped it for whatever reason. I don't think it was because I didn't like it. I don't know. I just didn't follow. But I really liked this first episode. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
You know, I had a very similar experience with the book where it was when it was first coming out was like it was when I was in college, and that was like really during that kind of like Image renaissance, and I was like picking up everything they were putting out for a while, and like I may have read the whole first arc, but like it was like among so many other things. I don't remember it that well. It didn't really strike a chord with me as much as some of the other stuff I was reading at the time. So like coming into this, I didn't really have I mean, to be honest with you, I almost had like low expectations because like I don't have any attachment to the story, and you know, I think Netflix's more big budget productions, more effects driven stuff has been hit or miss. Some of it has landed definitely a lot better than others. So going into this, as much as we had expressed it, like the trailer looked pretty strong, I wasn't going to be surprised if I didn't like it. And I think at the start, I kind of carried that energy into it where I felt like I was a little bit like, this feels a little predictable. It feels a little by the numbers. But about halfway through the episode, it really started to win me over. And, you know, I think there are some like executional things in some of the effects and some of like the sets and stuff like that I think, you know, definitely have that like Netflix budget vibe to it. But I think by and large, like I was surprised how engaged I found myself by the end of the first episode. And, you know, I kind of went into it with the mentality that I would watch this episode and see how I felt about it. And if it, you know, caught me, I'd check it out and see how the rest of the season played out. And I went from having like very little interest in watching the second episode to by the end of the first episode being like, all right, yeah, like this has gotten me enough to warrant giving it more of my time to see if it's something that I want to stick out. You know, I don't know that I'm going to, it's something that I'm going to want to follow for like multiple seasons or whatever, but this pilot was enough, or, you know, episode 1 was definitely enough to kind of invest me in it. You know, and give me something to like grab onto. So I think for that, it was definitely really effective.
Yeah, I think I feel pretty similar to Pete. I think back half of the first episode, sort of got me when they started talking about, you know, more like the larger world aspect things and how heroes play into certain parts of history. When they rewrite history, that's an interesting thing for me that I sort of I enjoy within a story. So I did like that aspect of the first episode, how they could have joined in on World War II and further implications. It's just interesting storytelling and world building,
Yeah.
and it did hook me enough to continue from that aspect. So I actually ended up watching through episode 4, and I won't mention too much, but it the narrative continues to be interesting and engaging. I don't know that I'm particularly over the moon about it. It's not like I need to watch the next episode, but I'm interested to see where the story's going.
You must
And
have
I
liked
think,
it somewhat to get through half of it in a day,
yeah, it's easy to sort of uh, to go through. I think they do a really good job of pacing it out and exploring characters here and there. So um, it does get interesting. Um, it's just not like that next level piece necessarily, but it is a fun ride so far.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Mark Millar fan. I think he's okay. I don't dislike everything he's done. There's some things that he's done that I've really enjoyed, like Superman Red Son. But by and large, especially as his career went on, I feel like his stuff's gotten kind of edgier and edgier for the sake of edginess. And not too crazy about it. I've never read Jupiter's Legacy before. I thought this first episode was fine. I was kind of interested in the character stuff. I kind of have mixed feelings about doing the whole what if superheroes were a real thing, kind of like the deconstruction of characters on two-dimensional comic book pages. But I think it was interesting enough that I was compelled the entire episode. Like at no point did I look at my phone because I was bored or anything, which happens sometimes. I'm interested to see more, I guess. I'm not totally sold, but I'm kind of intrigued.
You're peaked.
I'm peaked.
Yeah, I don't think I am sold. I found a lot of the dialogue to be a bit derivative. We live in a country that's never been more divided. I felt like Sean at one point has complained that he can't watch the CW shows because the effects and the costumes are too ridiculous. That's how I felt about this.
You thought it was too silly looking?
Yeah, especially the effects. Love the costumes,
Yeah.
but they just don't work in action, I guess, for me.
I didn't feel that way across the board, but I definitely felt that way intermittently throughout. Like I didn't feel like it was like and I'm not even saying this like to disagree with you, more to like build on your point. Like I didn't feel like it was a across the board thing that the effects were bad, but I remember there's a scene where I forget the name of the son, but Utopian's son,
Paragon?
Brandon?
Brandon Paragon. He did like a charge at the main bad guy that they're fighting like a few different times, and I remember there was one of them where just like the angle of it, the way that he kind of like went forward, like it just looked like he was in front of a green screen or like had wires on him or something. Like it was one of those moments where you're like, yeah, okay, like this looks like a production, and that only happened to me to the point where it was like taking me out of it probably a handful of times, but like it's definitely like
Only
enough.
a handful of times.
In this 40-minute episode. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. I mean that's kind of right, that's the point I guess I'm making, is that like that's not insignificant. But I don't know, like I'm also really interested in like the multiple timeline storytelling thing, like the fact that there is like the story of what's happening now kind of juxtaposed with how the original characters got their powers, and like the dawn of this age of heroes and everything like that. Like those things were interesting to me, and the fact that like the the teaser that we got at the end of the screener that we watched kind of showed like that they are going to explore them like going to this island and whatever. Like, I don't know, those threads were more interesting to me than the action was distracting.
Let's get out of the general talk then.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's
Yeah.
actually talk about what happened. So, the show basically is based around this family of superpowered people and this community of superpowered people. And what I really liked about it was that it focuses in on the drama of this family. Josh Duhamel plays the Utopian. And he's basically like Superman, I guess. But he very much has like I don't know, like maybe not right wing because he doesn't strike that way, but like he's kind of like hard on his family. He's hard on his son, hard on his daughter. He has certain views that feel kind of antiquated, especially like when his daughter is posing for magazines and he criticizes her for her lack of dress on the cover and stuff like that. I like him because he's not exactly what you expect him to be. I felt like you expect him to be Superman, and he's not that, and he's got flaws, but he's a good guy still. And that nuance is often lost in stories like this.
Yeah, I like the idea that he's like a good person but not a good dad. That's something that I feel like is underexplored in media, and I appreciate like using that as a way to present a character who's flawed, right? That like you can identify with like his goals and his his strong sense of morality, but like him being kind of an absent but also very hard on his kid's father is something that like is also really relatable in a bad way. And I like that because it kind of presents him as feeling more complex, because like for me, when you get to kind of that end moment of the episode, we're in full spoilers, right? We can talk about that.
Yeah.
So at the end of the episode where, again, what's his name? Brandon, kills this villain, that they're fighting. That's like
Xerox,
a real
Darkseid.
Yeah,
Black
Darkseid.
Star.
That's like a real like culture shock moment, right? Like it's a clear line in the sand between the older generation and the younger generation, and like I like the idea, like Sean, you laid out, right? Like it's not even like necessarily that he has like a right wing in like the way we think of it kind of mentality, but it's like conservative in that like he's old.
Yeah.
Like it's like the kind of disagreement you would have about society with like your, maybe like your grandparent or something like that, where it's just like, this isn't how we did things back in my day. Well, it's not your day anymore,
Yeah.
And that kind of dynamic, and I guess like that battle between the generations or whatever, it kind of reminded me of Kingdom Come in a good way.
Yeah,
But, like,
that was
the
that's a
newer-
good example.
The younger characters feel like actual characters, whereas when we reviewed that in our book club, which you can go check out, that was our like main criticism of that story, was that the younger heroes aren't really characters and don't really have identities, so their whole, the way they're portrayed kind of comes off as like, like these fucking young kids, like, whereas this, it feels more like two legitimate, sides that are debating what the right way to be a superhero is in, 2021 versus 1929.
Yeah, it's in Samson's name. He's the utopian, so his entire ideology kind of reflects the fact that like the need of the many outweighed the need of the few or the one. And, you talk about him being a mediocre father. Well, no matter what, his family, which is the primary focus of this story, plays second fiddle to superheroics. He's got to help as many people as possible. And how can he be a present dad when so many people need his help? He's not Superman,
How many more quotes are you going to fit in?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah,
I
you're
think.
good.
But that's what makes the end conflict so interesting, because Brandon makes a very interesting point in that Black Star is about to go nuclear. He could have done the thing that happens in Kingdom Come when Captain Atom ignites and blows up half of Kansas.
Right.
and all these people would have died there, including probably most of the superheroes. Probably not Utopian or something, but like his brother, probably his wife, his son, and everyone else that's there probably would have died in that kind of explosion. But he still cracks down, saying like, we don't kill.
And that addresses a common criticism that people have for superheroes like Superman, that they allow their villains who are vicious murderers to continue to act. And a lot of people, especially, younger people who look at these comics now or these characters now, especially that they're so popular with television and movies, and go, wait, why is the Joker alive? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And I like the idea that the show in a way addresses that through that conflict, forcing father and son to kind of argue with each other, like, wait, he was going to kill everybody, but no, you don't kill him because that's wrong. It's objectively wrong. That morality conversation is always so interesting when you use people with this kind of power.
I also thought it was funny.
Sorry, go ahead.
I also thought it was funny that the Utopian, his first suggestion was like, well, you could have sent him up into space.
Well, I guess Black Star can breathe in space, you hope.
I guess.
It's like, why didn't you
Fair
do that
assumption.
earlier then, bro? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, he looked like Mongol, so you gotta assume he could probably breathe in space.
Yeah,
But
Diet Mongol.
I guess.
Diet Mongol.
There's
Flavor
a
beverage.
there was a moment earlier where he actually, when he's talking to Brainwave, the brother, and he says like, people don't meet in the middle anymore. But it's funny that in that exact interaction, he doesn't want to meet.
Right.
He doesn't want to meet his son into that middle, and so the nuance gets lost on either side.
Yeah,
That's an
Utopian's unwavering.
That's an interesting point, because I feel like neither one of them was really in the middle. Like, murder is not a middle action, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I did like how they boiled that down though, because like I remember in the teaser where they're showing like the later conversations, they show a few younger heroes and like some people like thanking Paragon for what he did because he saved people's lives. And Utopian had said something where he was like, oh, like he doesn't even think he did anything wrong or whatever. And like, I don't know about you, I didn't get that vibe. Like when he did it and he's like, oh, you took the easy way out. And he's like, did that look like it was easy? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't want to do this. I did this to save people's lives. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Like, I like the idea of it being, maybe the quote unquote right choice, even though it's unsavory and that it's not like a good action. It's like that greater good conversation, right? Which is supposed to be Utopian's whole thing. So you would think that, sometimes you have to make compromises to save people's lives, but that doesn't appear to fit within his rigid code of morality,
I mean, Black Star did kill someone. He beheaded someone. In
Two
that
people.
fight. Two people.
Two people, yeah. He killed two heroes.
And they seem totally unconcerned with the loss of life of their friends. They've probably known. You're meant to assume, but like, these people were on the same superhero team. They've probably known each other for years. And
and specifically the guy who he shoots through that woman and then kills the guy who was
Barry?
his best friend. Yeah, like.
Yeah. I think that the questions and the battles between characters just in the first episode have been really interesting, and I can't wait to see how these things are going to develop, especially when you talk about the clear drama between Utopian and his brother Brainwave.
yeah,
So the show actually takes us back to the 1920s or whatever, when they're in business together, and you can already see the seeds being planted for their feud. That Brainwave is clearly more pragmatic, I guess, and he can see the bigger picture of the world, and Utopian kind of can't. It's just not the way his mind works. Well, whatever. His dad clearly aligns with him as well, and is in a moment that I mean, it was clearly going to happen once the setup was done.
Oh yeah.
But it was still like, oh shit, when his dad kills himself because the stock market crashed, which was a real life event.
Yep.
And I'm sure a lot of people did that at the time.
it did happen.
And I thought, okay, well, he's just gonna, Utopian, Josh Duhamel's character is just gonna fly down and save him, right? But they don't have powers at this point. And I guess that maybe that was very obvious, but I didn't feel it was. So that moment shocked me.
it's interesting because that's like kind of the inciting incident. Like you can see how that motivates Utopian to do what he does. And I think of a similar moment in All-Star Superman, or even Superman the movie, where Superman can't save Pa Kent from dying from a heart attack. And that moment is meant to inform Clark that he can't be everywhere at once. He can't save everyone. That's an important lesson for him to learn. Utopian has the opposite message here, where it's like, I need to be able to help everyone.
The wrong lesson.
The wrong lesson.
Yeah. I have, that was one of my favorite scenes of the episode too, just because I thought Josh, is it Duhamel? How do you say that? Duhamel? Whatever. Just the way he acted that I thought was really strong. It has that kind of like the sound like comes out and it gives you that kind of like you're in his head and he's just screaming like, and it's I don't know. He really like committed to that scene. And it, like you said, even though you could kind of see it coming, it felt very like shocking, you know?
Yeah. And you know, speaking about his performance there, I actually think the acting was pretty strong across the board.
It's a good cast.
I completely agree that the special effects left a lot to be desired. And Kale, man, boy, when that fight was going on, was I not thinking about the CW? I was like, holy shit, is this Channel 11? But
Yeah.
I do feel like what the show lacks in that department, it really did make up in performances. I love Leslie Bibb.
Me too.
I think she's great, and she did a great job here. I also want to call out the visual effects on the aging that they did on Leslie and Josh.
Yeah, they're both only 46. Like,
right, but they made them look, you know, pretty old. And I thought that looked great.
I don't know. That one definitely was one of the things I was going to call out. I was like, nah, that makeup was not good. The hair looks not great. It's
really,
yeah.
I don't agree. I'm with Sean. Like,
I think it's better on Josh Duhamel, but it looks just like they just put a gray wig on Leslie Bibb and called it. Like,
both of them, in my opinion.
Okay.
It was
which is
fine.
fine. She looks fantastic. You know, I'm not going to take that away. Like,
bad like prosthetics and makeup don't bother me that much. I can go along with that, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting because this show seems like the kind of thing, especially because it's a Netflix joint. You would think that they would put as much into this as they could. And when you look at the difference between how this looks and like the Disney Plus Marvel shows, I'm not gonna say it's night and day, but it's almost night and day. Like those look like movies.
Yeah.
This doesn't.
oh, I mean, the budget between, like, I can't imagine what the difference is. Like,
That's what's interesting though, Pete, is that like Netflix is pretty huge. It's
They have
not
a lot of
Disney
money.
huge.
Oh,
but
I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah, they have a lot of money for sure, but like, I have to imagine they're spending a lot more on making the MCU shows.
yeah, I
you
guess
know?
Disney. I mean,
Clearly.
yeah,
Clearly.
Netflix probably doesn't care that much about this, right?
I think that's
But-
the thing, right? Is like with Netflix, like Netflix is more about Netflix as a brand, whereas I feel like Disney like has brands that it builds around, you know, and like Marvel is one of those marquee brands, you know.
Probably their biggest brand right now.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm curious. Did you guys watch Lock and Key? Marco, you did.
Yeah,
Watched one
first
episode.
few episodes.
How do you feel it compares? Is it, especially since you've seen more of Jupiter at this point, do you feel like they're fairly comparable to your overall assessment of Lock and Key? Because I know when we talked about it, you and I were roughly on the same page of like, it feels watered down.
I think content-wise, it feels watered down. I think some of the visuals there were a little bit better, just because I think they utilized a bit more CGI, and here it looks like they didn't leverage that as much. It stays kind of consistent throughout the rest of like the episodes. I think the makeup gets a little bit better actually. But yeah, I think compared to like Lock and Key, maybe they put a little bit more budget behind that one.
You'd think that Lock and Key would be
Interesting.
easier too, though, right? Because there's only one character that's CGI, so you can put 100% of your effects budget into, making that
Yeah.
character look better. Whereas, like with this, every single character has superpowers. Everybody's in a costume.
You got to kind of like distribute that like a little more efficiently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you kind of have to be a little bit more equitable about where your resources go because, like, you need, and like, not for nothing too. There's also a portion that takes place in the past, so like you have to like get
Set
period
pieces.
clothing and like
Good point.
there's a lot you need to kind of get moving. And then like the villain, right? Like he was like a totally CG character almost. I mean, maybe not totally, but like accentuated, right? And like he's fully animated in like 3 separate scenes. Like when you really break down how many effects driven moments there are in this episode, let alone the whole season,
Yeah, it continues.
you can kind of get where like the quality washed out with,
To
I
its
agree.
compliment,
Yeah.
it did, like, Black Star looked better than Steppenwolf did in the theatrical version of Justice League, I'd say.
So true. That is absolutely true. And also the fight itself, I thought it was awesome. I thought that the concept of the fight was really cool.
Mhm.
The idea that this dude is so strong and there's all these heroes that need to come at him. The way it played out, I was really pleased with. It's just that it didn't look good, but I thought it was good despite that.
The pacing of the fight was satisfying. And like I think because enough of the non-technical elements worked for me, I kind of was like, it reminds me of like watching like a good B movie, where you're like, yeah, like
Like B movie.
Sure.
Oh,
Like sure, it could look better, it could have better effects or whatever, but like the cast is strong, and I think the overall narrative is interesting enough that I'm willing to forgive its flaws a little bit more than I might be if I didn't find that stuff as interesting.
Speaking of looking good, do you know what moment made me pop more than any other in this show?
What's that?
Not knowing a ton about Jupiter's Legacy, there was a moment in the second scene of the episode where Brandon is fighting like a bank robber. One of the trucks in the background said Quietly, and I was like, oh shit, Frank Quietly drew this book.
That's cool.
And I started looking at images, and I'm like, oh my god, it's beautiful. Now I want to read it just to look at the Frank Quietly art.
well, you're gonna have to because we've got a book club coming out for that this month.
Yeah, check it out.
It's worth pointing out that Stephen S. DeKnight is one of the executive producers. I believe he wrote this episode. And
He did.
Yeah, and he was a big part of Daredevil and the success of that.
Oh,
and,
really?
Yeah.
Shit.
So he's been around. And I think that he was able to lend his expertise from that over onto this. For me personally, I really enjoyed this. It's got some problems, but I didn't feel like any of those problems were the narrative. And that's the key. If the show continues to look the way it looked in this episode, I'll be pleased because it's unlikely they're going to be fighting this level of villain in every episode. I'm sure it'll slow down. This being the first episode, you got to hook people. It's probably going to focus a lot more in on the things that I like the most and pull away from the things that it struggled to do well, which in my opinion, again, is mostly just the visual aspect. I haven't really read any other reviews. I know there's been some negativity about it, but if you're listening to this and you haven't watched it, at least watch the first episode and just don't ignore what other people have to say, ignore what we're saying. Just go into it with fresh eyes, fresh ears, and give it a chance.
What the hell?
Yeah, but then come back.
I just looked up the
tell us that we're right.
I just looked up the Rotten Tomato score and it feels way off to me.
What is it?
It has 36 with critics, 74 for audiences.
36 is crazy.
That's even
Yeah.
really
That
low.
probably sounds about right, honestly. With critics,
I would say it's kind of interesting though, right? Because like I feel like the narrative is strong. I mean, I don't know how the rest of the show plays out, but like, Kale, do you feel like the story that's set up here in the first episode is not good?
I don't think it's great. I would say it's passable for sure.
That's my thing, though, right? Like, in my mind, there's a wide valley between not great and actively bad. You know, like, and I don't feel like this was actively bad. Like, even
but
if
also
you didn't vibe
taking into account all the other stuff, you know, a critic's gonna have, you know, a lot harsher opinions about the costumes and the CGI and the, you know, the fight choreography and the, you know, the dialogue.
Well, now you got me wondering. Let's compare it to like Supergirl. Let's say. Hold on.
Ah, Jesus Christ, man! What are you dragging us into now?
Into the mud.
I will say, like halfway through it, the narrative stays strong. I think they pace out the two time frames, like the past and the present, well, and it's been the most compelling piece. And Sean, you're right. Like they don't have the big budget, you know, fight in every episode. It starts to focus more so on individual characters. I think if you guys are focused on that piece, you're gonna get a kick out of it.
You know, yeah, I don't think that's fair to say like all the things added up is why this has like a low review on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, granted, we haven't watched all 8 episodes,
Right.
and maybe this nosedives, right?
Yeah, right. I might change my mind.
But like Supergirl, which is another show that has questionable visuals, has a 90% critical score. So like to me, it can't be the visuals and the costumes and stuff.
Well, I don't know about you, but I don't watch Supergirl, so I can't speak to the quality of the visuals. But that show has a different audience that's looking for different things, and I think that those are not equivalent. Make up your own mind when you go to watch this. I'm gonna watch the rest of this season because
Me too.
the first episode did it for me. And again, just, you know, make up your own mind whether you like it or don't. Just give it a chance. Yeah, I'm in for the ride. We will determine if you guys want us to go ahead and review the rest of it. We'll do a big review for the whole rest of the series.
Yeah, I'll be down.
Yeah. So write in, let us know your thoughts about the episode. If you want us to do a full review, you can expect that. And again, if you are a fan of Jupiter's Legacy, keep it locked to us because we will have a book club out at the end of the month, the last Tuesday of the month, regarding the entire thing. So check back for that. Thank you so much to Allied Marketing for giving us the screener. Thank you for listening to this. We appreciate you guys a lot. Make sure that you guys check out our weekly podcast, The Comics Pals, which drops every single Monday, where we talk industry news, characters you love, and all the places you can find them. Leave us a review, a rating. Follow us on all podcast hosting platforms that you use. If you listen to this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It's free to do. Share the video with your friends. Comment, like the video, all that jazz. Helps us out a lot more than it costs you. You can join our Discord server to continue the conversation with us. And have a great time. Thank you for listening. Until next time, we are the Comics Pals signing off. Take care, guys.
See you next time.